We are learning more about the alleged plot to kidnap Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer. A total of 13 individuals are facing charges, including conspiracy and terrorism. For more on this, let's bring in Jason Blazakis. He is a senior research fellow at the Soufan Center. He's also formerly served in the Bureau of Counterterrorism at the State Department. Jason, given your experience, how serious of a threat was this?
Lana, first, thank you for having me on the program. This was a really serious threat. First, I'd like to start by just calling out federal law enforcement, the FBI and the state of Michigan, local law enforcement, for the great work they did to stop this potential kidnapping and possible assassination of the governor of Michigan. You know, it comes during a really dangerous time in America, you know, against the backdrop of COVID-19, government shutdowns, economic hardships, and a really tense political election. You know, these were individuals that have been plotting this attack, according to the FBI, since the spring, and they were hoping to operationalize the attack right before the election. And in fact, I think these arrests have come today because they were moving towards a operational phase. And I think because of the FBI's efforts and because of the state of Michigan, they have prevented a loss of life, because these were really serious individuals who were bent on carrying out a terrorist attack.
Really tremendous work by the FBI and all those involved. It sounds insane, honestly. According to the criminal complaint, the alleged plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer was in the works for months. What all went into gathering evidence against these militia members? And what more do we know about how they operated, Jason?
Oh, absolutely. It reads like, if you look at the criminal complaint, and I really would recommend that your viewers take a look at it, because it reads like a movie script. And what's clear to me is that the alleged plotters were motivated by some kind of perception that the government officials in Michigan were somehow eroding their civil liberties. Particularly, they were concerned about losing their access to guns and therefore the abridgment of their Second Amendment rights. And they were individuals who really wanted to do three things based on my analysis. One, they wanted to stop Whitmer. Two, they wanted to create some kind of civil conflict. And three, they were hoping that civil conflict would lead to some kind of preferred political outcome, one in which there's less government in the lives of Americans. And they were also engaged in really dehumanizing language, calling the governor a parasite. And thankfully, the FBI had informants within the organization who were able to report back these threats and to notify the state of Michigan to the threat. And thankfully, these individuals were stopped before they could carry out a significant act of terrorism.
But it does sound like they got pretty far into the planning stages of this. What more do we know about these types of militias in the U.S.? And are these groups, in fact, something that we need to be concerned about?
Oh, absolutely. Now, this militia, I think, unlike some others that we've seen over the course of this summer, who have mostly been, interested in protecting statues, it's trying to stop individuals from looting, to protect businesses. This was a group that had plotted since the spring. It was an organization that was serious in the sense that they engaged in really smart communication security. They communicated over encrypted applications. They engaged in operational security. They were really worried about federal government infiltration, so they took some of their telephones, put them in a box, kept them separate from where their meetings were occurring. They had trained for the attack and didn't just train in the same location every time. They trained in multiple spots. And then finally, they bought tactical gear like night vision goggles and even tried to construct the improvised explosive device, according to the federal criminal complaint. And in the end, they were also engaged in surveillance, trying to get a sense of Governor Whitmer's location. Where would the best place be to strike her? So they were doing their homework. The area where they slipped up, obviously, is they allowed federal government entities who were informing upon them into their operation. So they were a little sloppy in that sense, thankfully, in terms of the recruitment part of this attack.
Well, we've also learned that the plot was scheduled to take place around Election Day. What are some of the challenges for the FBI and other law enforcement agencies when it comes to preventing acts of domestic terrorism, particularly ahead of the November election and perhaps even inauguration?
So if you're following the chatter from white supremacist groups, anti-government groups like these two Michigan militias, it's very clear to me that there is a significant interest in causing disruption in the context of the election in November 3rd at the state, local, and federal level. So the federal investigative agencies like the FBI and Department of Homeland Security, they need to double down and ensure that, for instance, polling places are kept safe, that individuals who may try to do harm during Election Day through, say, a vehicle ramming attack, those individuals are being monitored, that jersey barriers are put up near election polling places, because those election polling places are a soft target. And my biggest fear is an attack on those soft targets carried out by anti-government groups or white supremacist organizations. And from the stats that we're seeing being reported by universities like the University of Maryland and others, there is a significant uptick in violent activity associated with these radical right-wing organizations.
Certainly concerning. Thank goodness that this particular plot was foiled. Jason Blazakis, thank you.
Thank you, Lana.